Hello, ladies and gentlemen, cyclocross fans and viewers from all around. Welcome to GCN's coverage of the second stop and the fourth race of the 2023 USCX Series. Today's race in Rochester, New York, in the beautiful Genesee Valley Park, which is up in the northeast corner of New York State, in case you were wondering. Today's weather, 63 degrees. A little bit of rain out there. These are from pictures from earlier. It's cloudy with rain in the forecast. I'm Jeremy Powers, and today I'm joined by five-time British National Cyclocross champion Ian Field. Ian, welcome to the show.
Thanks very much, Jeremy. Looking forward to this one. Just finished the women's race, so if anyone missed that, go back on the replay on the GCN app and have a watch of that one. It was action-packed. So looking forward to today's racing. Here we have the highlights from yesterday. Andrew Strohmeyer with that super fast start, and then we saw issues on the flyover on the very first lap that held up a lot of riders. Eventually we got a leading group formed at the front. Plenty of international riders in the mix. Michael Vandenham threw his hat into the ring, but it was Loris Roulier, Andrew Strohmeyer, Vincent Bastans who came to the fore. We had a leading trio for the majority of the race. Andrew Strohmeyer pushed the pace at different times during the race. Curtis White, who had issues earlier in the race, desperately tried to close down the gap to the leading trio, but came up slightly short. On the final lap, we had a huge battle for position going into the very key technical features of this course that we're going to see. Then into the final step section, Strohmeyer went for the ride. Bastans ran past him, was able to take yet another win at Rochester.
Unbelievable ride there from Vincent Bastans. This is your current 2023 USCX Pro Men standings. Loris Roulier, Vincent Bastans, Curtis White in the top three there. Andrew Strohmeyer with 82 points in fourth. Vandenham, Jules Van Kempen, Caleb Schwartz, and Marcus Schelt all rounding out that top eight right now for the overall standings in this very prestigious USCX series. Getting some pictures down on the ground, Ian, of the riders who are going to be staging for quite some time. You can see they've been standing there for a bit just because they're getting ready for everything. But these are some images that we've got, Ian, of Bath going over to New York City. So showing a big journey for our communications channels as we get the live stream going from Bath all the way to New York City and then right up here into Rochester, New York, which you can see again that northwest corner here. It's a city in Monroe County, situated just in the western region of New York, if you're a maps person. But this is the map of the track here. Things running a little bit differently this time around, Ian. We've got riders going through that start loop, and then they're going to be going out onto that further part of the course here. This area of the track where we saw a lot of yesterday's final part of the race. Very exciting race that we just got those highlights of happening and playing out. But right off the start, once they come back through, they're going to be hitting the double trouble section of the race backwards today. So they're going to be going down some of these weird embankments and some of the things that they rode yesterday are going to be run-ups now. Then they're going to be making their way across some of these technical sections and then back. So this is some of the start list. Bastans, White, Roulier, Funston, Ferdinand, Vandenham, Schwartz, Strohmeyer, Hydet, Tyler Clark rounding out that top 10 on the start list. Then just behind them, we've got the second list that's going to be coming up, which is Valenti, Jules Van Kempen, again, Cody Scott, Opizzi, Brown, Shelton, Hildebrand, Dylan Z, Benjamin Sweet, and Ben Frederick riding for that Small Monsters project. And that third and fourth row is going to be Egan, Brenneman, Moat, Lando, Nicholas Lando riding for the competition team. What's up, Nick? We've got Matthew Graham O'Regan, Jordan Snyder, Kyle Dow, Cade Bickmore, Alessandro Polini, Nathan Hauber, Eric Carlton. This is a hit list. We got some hitters out here. Aiden Maple, also local rider here in Massachusetts. Also Timothy Kretzler there for Cycle Smart. Some of the Jam Fun Crew NCC team all out there. So, Ian, yesterday's protagonist. This is not Michael Vandenham. This is actually Andrew Strohmeyer, Ian.
Andrew Strohmeyer took it out hot, really took it to the Continental riders. See Anton Ferdinand DQ'd from yesterday's race for an illegal hand up in in terms of drinking. Here, Loris Roulier, our double winner from last weekend, only managed third place yesterday, but seemed relatively happy with his ride. Yesterday's winner, Vincent Bastans from Belgium, looking down, getting an idea of the tread that these riders are using. Curtis White as well, riding for Steve Tilford Foundation. Looks like he's gone for a slightly heavier tread. Scott Funston got a good start yesterday, but just started to fade away ever so slightly as the race went on, riding for WTB Pivot Endurance Racing Team. Finally, Michael Vandenham with a big old yawn on the start line. Don't be fooled by that. Very often when riders are nervous, they'll yawn. Finally, Caleb Schwartz on the start line, rounding out that front row of riders.
The conditions changed quite considerably, Ian, from the beginning of the race yesterday, for the beginning of the women's race, excuse me, especially from yesterday to today. Big changes in tire selection for most of these riders.
Yeah, we saw in the women's race, tyre selection absolutely key. So I'd have thought majority of these riders would be taking more tread compared to yesterday, slightly lower pressures as well to deal with these conditions. The rain started coming down approximately kind of 2.5 hours ago. So the riders haven't had a huge amount of practice in these conditions on this course today. As we said in our preview, some of those key technical features being run in the opposite direction to yesterday. So going to make for an interesting race, and we'll see how the legs have come round for a lot of these riders. Pretty similar start list to tomorrow, no names missing. Be interesting to see who takes this one on today.
Yeah, I agree. Phil Miller there, the UCI comm that's on the front row there, giving last race instructions, but the riders are definitely ready to go. The bell, whistle could come at any time as all of the riders just start to get into that position now, looking forward, super focused as they're down there on the start line, getting ready to go. Boom, and the whistle's off here in Rochester. Anton Ferdinand right into the pedal. Scott Funston there. You see your U.S. national champion Curtis White just behind him as they come through, but it's, oh my goodness, Strohmeyer out of the saddle, punching it through this. A big race to these first turns as you see Louis Rouillet there with his foot out as he comes down to that small little gully there. Everybody, Ian, wants to be out front on this one without any mistakes or anyone to crash and impede them as these conditions have slipped up quite a bit.
Problem for one of the riders already, a bike change needed. Probably going to see a few bike changes today with problems, but the riders heading down now straight into the barriers for the first time. Interesting whether the riders can feel. Seeing a good number of riders still hopping them, even in these slimy, slippy conditions, not able to carry as much speed through that corner before them. Obviously not able to sprint into them with these slippy conditions under tyre. As we see the field line out once again, this is kind of the last quarter of the lap that we saw similar to yesterday. And once we go through that start finish, so this is a start loop around about 3 minutes in length, and then they'll head out onto the course proper and see those technical features being run in an opposite direction. But already now a huge fight for the front of this race.
Yeah, for sure. Big fight. And I think the riders also, as a rider, you have to, I think the women's race ran long. So a lot of these riders, were sitting down there, kind of just bopping around, maybe on their trainers, maybe on the rollers, doing something to stay warm, running up and down the field, just doing everything that they could, as we see now Ferdinand with a leg out, with a little bit of brop brop as he comes on the high line there, Ian, just to get sideways. Now Rouillet coming up there. Lars Rouillet, the Swiss rider, coming on the inside of that with great traction. We saw this, Ian, last week when they were down in the southern part of the United States at round one at the Virginia's Blue Cross. Louis Rouillet, extremely good technically. You see him taking those big, wide lines, very square, wide bars with a lot of traction on his machine. So, again, seeing the pedigree of Louis Rouillet, the Swiss rider here, right at the front straight away after yesterday. Maybe coming away with this one exactly not as he had planned yesterday.
No, he would have been hoping for more yesterday, although always see a crash further down the pack, just a rider losing it. Once again, it just shows how slippy the conditions are today. A rider almost losing it in a straight line after that corner. But yeah, as we were saying, Loris Rouillet just technically very gifted. He's grown up racing on those very technical Swiss courses where mud is kind of the norm there, very similar to kind of the UK hilly technical courses, and already opening up a small gap over the riders behind. Anton Ferdinand looks like he's struggling to hold the wheel in second position. Strohmeyer, Vanham, White, Bastans, Haydet, Funston.
everybody here to play right now as Luis Rouillet maybe thinking about yesterday and what happened and how it played out. He was asked in the finish if he would have done something tactically differently. Maybe this is the tactic, in fact, Ian, that I'm going to drive it fast, I'm going to get a gap early, and I'm going to see if I can play my hand differently. Because yesterday, no spoilers, it was a great race. Definitely go back and watch it. It was one of the most exciting U.S. races that I've seen in many, many moons. But Luis Rouillet, I can say that it was not exactly how he had hoped that it would have gone. And right now, maybe trying to make up for that. So off the front as he comes through, going through the pits, no signaling to his mechanics, so it doesn't look like he needs a equipment change as he does a bit of a wheelie through this area here. That's runoff from the pits where the bikes have been washed. There's a little bit of water that's running out onto the track, but now they come into this new area, which for the first time we did not see the course preview due to the women's race running long. We were skipped that section, so we're going to walk you through this on this first lap. So Ian, tell the viewers what they're going to be seeing here now coming up.
So same as yesterday, the flyover. However, they've taken a right-hand turn instead of going straight on, so they're heading down now into those technical sections that we saw yesterday. So the riders will be off and running any second now. Up this small bank, Rouillet tries to ride it. He's able to. Interesting, really interesting. All the other riders, he's just taking the opportunity. Because he's leading this, he's got the line choice. He can choose where he's riding. He was able to go around the bottom, and then he even rides double trouble. All these men, male athletes, riding double trouble. See one rider choosing back in the pack, caught up in a bit of traffic to run that one for safety. But really interesting to see these technical sections run a different way, but interesting. Already Strohmeyer coming to the front of this race. I'm sure he hasn't listened to his own interview yesterday. Yesterday he said he wanted to play it cooler, kind of sit back a little bit more and watch, but we have got slightly different conditions today. I think there is a huge advantage from leading through these technical sections, even some of the wide open fast sections. The turns are so kind of like tricky in places that perhaps it is better to lead the majority of this race. Into this run up now, to see Ferdinand losing his footing. It's so slippy underfoot, almost a slimy top layer and a really hard ground underneath.
Do you think Ferdinand may be the one rider there that doesn't have any toe spikes in right now?
It appeared that way. It's kind of one of those things, the weather conditions changed so quickly that perhaps he's been caught out by that. Perhaps he didn't even bring any to America. You never know. One of those things that maybe didn't get packed up when thinking about racing out here. Very often the early season races are all super dusty, super fast, but certainly looked like he was struggling for traction on his feet up on that run-up.
Yeah, we saw Keith Mullally there coming through for the GM Fund NCC, representing the crew out here in Western Massachusetts. Great to see him out there as we see now the front. Andrew Strohmeyer follows by Luis Rouillet there coming through with Anton Ferdinand just behind him. It'll be interesting to see how Curtis White also goes in these conditions, Ian, because if we look back at the races in Europe and in the United States where Curtis White's really been able to do something and have an advantage over his competitors, it's been when the conditions have gotten nasty and sloppy. I mean, maybe for White he would need a little bit of sleet and precipitation to make it all work, but he does tend to do better in the nastier tracks.
For sure, but already making his way through the group really quickly up into third place. Rouillet having to get off on that climb. Only rider forced off their bike at that point in the leading group, but maybe gives an indication of what tyre tread he's running compared to the riders around him.
Right now we're seeing a lot of the riders come through here. A lot of also sting in the legs from yesterday's race is my guess. You know, I think you do 2 days of racing, but yesterday these guys were not playing games, were they? It was a real throwdown. It was a super fast, really tactical race at the front, and I have to believe that even though these are all seasoned professionals that do train a ton, I have to believe that yesterday's race is still, they have a bit of bite in their legs from yesterday's hard efforts.
For sure, you can be as fit as you want, but it still hurts the next day. But Strohmeyer waiting for no one, opening a gap on Ferdinand, White, Bastans. Rouillet going backwards in this one. I don't know if he's got a bike problem, but looks like the wheels are still turning, chain's still on. Looks pretty good, but losing time over the course of that half of the lap with those technical sections, perhaps running a bit of a faster tread. We know last weekend that he opted for the kind of the Griffo tread, even in the muddier conditions, so perhaps has been caught out by the changing conditions. Interesting to see if he opts for a bike change at the early opportunity.
I agree with you there. Yeah, it is a little bit surprising. We had seen from the beginning, what tire was it that we had seen a picture of at the beginning of today's race for Luis Rouillet, Ian? Do you remember, do you recall the name of the tire?
he had a Schwalbe on an X1R race, so one of the tyres that isn't kind of the norm for a lot of these top riders, but it looked an interesting tread, looked very similar to kind of a bit of an old school Tufu tread, an arrowed diamond setup, but with a little bit more aggressiveness on the side, so looked a pretty good option for when things got a little bit slippy. Perhaps he opted for that, but the conditions have definitely got worse through the women's race, and so a lot worse than when he would have practiced this course. And right now, Strohmeyer and Ferdinand riding away with this one.
Strohmeyer, yeah, we saw it yesterday, and you have to ask yourself, for such a young rider, under 23 national champion Andrew Strohmeyer yesterday, if it was, wishing he had done things differently. Definitely was strong enough to have won yesterday's race, but you got to get it all right too. You can be the strongest but not the smartest. You can be the smartest but not the strongest and win. I mean, there's a lot of different combos, as you know, as we see there. White having a little bit of a hard time there, taking that high line with Bostons just coming underneath them. Rie there sitting in, slotting in behind White now. But yeah, right now as we go with lap times, it's for Strohmeyer, he's finding this extra 5-6 seconds on this lap, and now it's up to the veteran Belgian, the Belgian beast, or as you called him yesterday, the Belgian bandit, for snatching such a good race move yesterday. He was really active in yesterday's race, again trying to not do any spoilers, but definitely go back and watch it. But Vincent Boston's now in the front of this group, driving it here as he hops off his machine and runs up these blue steps, hopping back on the bike here. This section of the course, really tough to get your momentum back and going, but this second chase group is quite big and ballooned way out.
It has. It's the sort of conditions where every corner is slightly tricky, and so it's really easy to almost like close up on the rider ahead of you, just carry a little bit more speed, carry a little bit more risk into each corner to make up half a second here and there. But right now, Strohmeyer, he said in his interview after last weekend that he just likes to make the race constantly hard, and it's exactly what he's doing today. Off come the glasses, going to discard with those. But yesterday he tried to make the race hard, but with the conditions that we had, the other two riders were able to kind of sit on his wheel, use him a little bit, throw down attacks and force him onto the back foot at times, but he wasn't able to shake them, and then eventually kind of, got robbed on the final lap.
Yeah, for Strohmeyer right now, though he's not playing games, he's definitely, look at him kind of zigzagging through this, going in that green grass, going straight across, pushing that tape way outside. Even Ferdinand having a hard time responding to the pace that right now Andrew Strohmeyer is coming through at. So Strohmeyer kind of grabbed this race by the horns right now, doing everything he can. The CX Airs, Devo, Trek Bikes rider, really throwing down, wants to make a name for himself. And I have to say right now, based on what I've seen, he's the most dangerous rider out here.
He really is. He's had an excellent start to the season. It's really interesting to see what he can do over the course of the season. Be really exciting to watch him in Europe at some of the big World Cup events. Obviously, one of those riders that came across last year. Didn't have a great opening while in America, but he got 6th in the Under-23 World Cup last year in Tabor. Looking ahead, World Championships on that same course this year, so he'll be super pumped, super excited, huge motivation for that. So we see this technical section that, nope, Loris Roulier decides to get off his bike and run out of there. We see a slip for Curtis White, just loses footing on that super steep run up and loses a number of places within the group. On to double trouble now.
Double trouble there as they come through. White, hand down, muddy hand as he comes through. He's on the back of this group now, getting a replay here. This is one of those tricky sections. It's super steep to ride down in the opposite direction. You see there just a slip of the foot there. It's low visibility on the light. It's a trickster, and it just got him, snatching right there in the leg. As he comes through now, Vandenham able to see the opportunity and the danger that's going out. These guys are vying for third spot on the podium, so there's going to be a big fight that's happening as they go through this section right now.
You see how important positioning is through those technical sections, because as soon as they come out onto a fast section, the elastic stretches and you see White kind of really distanced off of that group. I mean, he went into that section right behind Loris Roulier and he's come out kind of almost 10 seconds down perhaps. Always see a slip out for Ferdinand. We see how tricky it is in these wooded sections. Just loses the front end and down he goes. Strohmeyer back to the front of this one.
Strohmeyer bunny hopping that. He sees, as a young rider, he's probably taking some notes on the riders that he's racing with. But right now, the Belgian rider Vincent Bostons really riding super strongly. And then we've got Lance Hydet there, number 9, tucked right on his wheel in these kind of more nastier conditions here. Hydet coming right across, and then he's right there on Vincent Boston's wheel. I have a feeling that this one's going to come back together by the looks of it right now.
Looks like those leading two just slowing down ever so slightly with those mistakes in the technical sections. But yeah, Lance Haydet, a very technically gifted rider, so these conditions really suiting him. He's looking super confident in that chase group. These two riders opting for the inside line, staying on that grass on the inside, making that corner quite tight, but kicking hard, kicking really hard out. See Lance Haydet going sideways out of there, the amount of power that he's putting down through those pedals, through that back wheel. But all these top men riding this climb. Vandenham just about gets over the top of that one. Funston, White, see the time that he's lost just from that small slip.
Yeah, an error kind of adding up here. We saw White yesterday really put it together in the last 2 laps. He rode some of the fastest lap times of the day yesterday in his final 15 minutes of his race, just to miss the podium, but he was super close. Made it a very exciting race to call. Perhaps he's realizing that this race is settling in, slowing down, and he wants to not be kind of baited into doing that, but unsure of the tactic for the U.S. national champion. But right now he's currently at the back of this chase group as these two riders continue to go through. Right now Strohmeyer, Ferdinand with a bit of a slip out. Strohmeyer with a big effort as we get our man Scheichen there in the photo, taking a photo, in fact, in the picture, taking a photo. But right now Strohmeyer back to the front, really trying to light this one up, and he's got Vincent Bostons coming across, the Haydet there, as well as the Swiss rider Loris Rouillet coming across as well.
For anyone that kind of was looking through the results yesterday and couldn't see Anton Ferdinand's name, he was actually disqualified yesterday for an illegal hand up of a bottle. So these guys, if they do want a bottle, then they have to go into the pits and jump on a bike that has a bottle on it. You can't be handed a bottle up, which is what happened. He remained on course, and we got reports of his mechanic handing up a bottle over from the pit lane into the racing lane. He took that bottle, tried to discard it, but it was seen by a commissaire, so he was instantly disqualified. So huge disappointment for the Belgian rider yesterday, missing out on the points and the money from yesterday's race. So we see a replay of the start right now.
Yeah, it was exactly how we called him, man. It was all out, really brapping through there. But Strohmeyer on that, all the way on the right-hand part of that track, really lit this one up and took it straight out of the blocks and took that first turn in first place. Ferdinand behind him, but it was a little squirrely. We saw Loris Rouillet there, the Swiss rider, just kind of doing what he could to keep his foot out, keep his traction. But sometimes when you're coming over from Europe, Ian, you don't get to bring every set of tires that you have. And perhaps Rouillet doesn't have exactly what he wants today, but he knows that if he gets the tire pressure right and he works the machine enough that he can get away with it today. You can see him really using a lot of body English, foot down, dabbing here and there, but he is doing a good job and he's riding consistently.
For sure. I remember packing all my equipment up to bring out to the US, and you're always slightly compromised on how many sets of wheels you could even bring, as you were desperately trying to fit another set into that bike bag, just squeezing them in, almost standing on the bag to try and do it up. So yeah, perhaps for these European riders, just not quite having all of the tyre choices that they would perhaps have back in Europe. A van full of wheels for a lot of these top European riders, but no excuses now. The race is on, and Rouillet into that chasing trio, just losing some time on those steps once again to Bastans. Bastans absolutely nailed them yesterday and looks super fast on his feet today as well.
Yes, we get this beautiful aerial drone shot right now of this race playing out. I do believe that these riders are going to sit up a little bit, Ferdinand, and I believe Bostons is going to get back across. Even though it is about 5 seconds, I think that it's going to sit back a little bit, and I do think that these riders are going to come back into it, and they're going to all come back together here as we see now Bostons here on the front, looking for a little bit of help from Rouillet or Haydet, as we see just behind him. Looks to be Michael Vandenham trying to come across. So now Loris Rouillet, one of yesterday's big riders that was doing everything, the double winner from last weekend down at Virginia's Blue Cross, really doing all of the duties here to try to pull this one back after what I would consider to be kind of a slower lap this last lap. As we look back at the times, it was for Rouillet, his lap there was a 7:16, but this lap a 7:03. So on this lap he found almost 15 seconds of time through there. So he's definitely knocked and dialed this course in quite a bit more.
for sure. You see a replay there of Caleb Schwartz riding that outside line, coming into those steps. See one of the riders riding those steps. Saw yesterday not many riders choosing that option. Safer, less risk getting off to run those. But Anton Ferdinand now to the fore. Looking at those lap times, those leading two did get closed down ever so slightly over the course of that lap time. Those 3 riders behind at 4 seconds right now, joined by Michael van der Ham to make that a quartet of riders now chasing down the leading two.
Great ride for Michael van der Ham. This is going to be his last season of racing, I was told. I read, actually, and he's also, as Rouillet now rides that section. So van der Ham looking at starting a career with Canadian Cycling, being the national cyclocross coach. A new role for van der Ham after this season, so it's exciting. He's going to finish it out on Bangy, and he's doing a really great job. As a rider that's recently retired like yourself, you want to go out with your name on top, don't you?
You do. Van der Ham, one of those that me and you raced many, many times over the years, and yeah, kind of one of those riders that never gave up. Very good in these sorts of tough conditions, and we see now really fighting to hold that wheel of the Belgian Vincent Bastans just ahead of him. But Loris Rouillet, Bastans with problems, banging his foot on the pedal to try and get clipped in, try and remove some of that compacted dirt around the cleat on the bottom of the shoe. So see our 2 leaders into one of those run-up sections, which is causing so many problems for the riders. Interesting today, Ferdinand taking no chances. He's got the bottle on the bike today, no chances of an illegal hand up.
As we see the riders just grappling up that hill, doing everything that they can to just scurry up it and get themselves to the top and back on their machines to get some momentum back. But that for the Swiss riders, Ian, that's not going to pose any problems. That's like traditional steep Swiss cyclocross, just nasty, steep, muddy hills thrown right into the middle just to break things up. For someone like Loris Rouillet, that's not going to be foreign grounds to them.
No, big, steep, sweeping off cambers and climbs up and down kind of Swiss hillsides are exactly kind of what he would have grown up racing on in Switzerland, and the courses in Europe obviously contain very similar kind of tricky technical features that he would have grown up riding, and yeah, looks at home on those technical features that they have here in Rochester. Different line choices for the 2 leaders. Ferdinand carrying his speed round the outside, carrying that speed into the next uphill. Strohmeyer taking that tight inside line, not carrying quite as much speed, and Ferdinand chops him off at the top of the climb, forces Strohmeyer to put a foot down. Really good move there from Ferdinand.
Yeah, big move. I mean, that's classic. We could have literally, if we could draw on this screen, if you go back and replay this and then put this over it, this is a piece, man. That is bike racing. So Strohmeyer with the lower center of gravity, that smaller rider taking that inside line. Then we saw Ferdinand taking that big Belgian, that big wide outside line on the grass. Then literally they both interconnected. Each went the different way. We saw Ferdinand come over to the top of the climb. Strohmeyer get crisscrossed. Then Ferdinand cuts back across against the line, cuts Strohmeyer off. Strohmeyer has to put a foot down. That immediately, totally fair game, I think, Ian, created basically an attack and put Strohmeyer on the back foot, 3-4 bike lengths.
Absolutely, and we spoke about it yesterday, how Strohmeyer has the legs to win these bike races, but he's just trying to work out how to win them. And it's kind of little moves like that that we're seeing from perhaps the more experienced Belgian riders that are kind of getting the better of him in just very small moments within a race. That's going to cause Strohmeyer now to kind of burn a match to come back to the back wheel of Anton Ferdinand.
This is one of those make or break moments, I think, for somebody like van der Ham. He's got to just get back onto the back of this group or hope that it's going to sit and settle a little bit. But it's weird because Ferdinand and Strohmeyer and now Loris Rouillet all coming into the mix now. Will it sit up when they get there, or is there going to be more fireworks? We also got kind of some of the riders that these top 3 haven't seen before in Lance Heidet, right? So Heidet and van der Ham coming into the mix, although van der Ham just tattered off the back, just kind of dangling there a little bit as he makes his way over the barricades. But Heidet, former under-23 national champion, definitely a guy that can perform under pressure. He finds himself in the mix, and these riders have not raced head-to-head against Lance Heidet yet.
No, interesting that he's not actually riding the barriers. I thought he would have been. Definitely a set of barriers that he'd gain an advantage off the back of them, but he's just about holding the wheel to Rouillet ahead of him. They're bringing back Strohmeyer, Ferdinand with the small gap now. Such fine racing, such fine margins in this close racing that just that small foot down force. Strohmeyer at the top of that climb, and the gap's gone, and he's brought back kind of into the fold of that chasing group, as we see Ferdinand now on this tricky cambered section, but rides it well, carries his speed down, using all of the course, pushing the tape, as we say. Roulier using that wide line, cutting back across. Interested in all the fine arts of cyclocross, trying to remain on the green for as long as possible. Green is grip, cutting across that racing line. So we see Ferdinand cutting in tight. Roulier is going to ride all the way around the outside like normal. Strohmeyer choosing the outside lane as well, carrying the speed through the turns. See Ferdinand just risking things, just trying to get a little bit desperate, turn in a little bit tighter, panicking ever such a slight little bit. Strohmeyer holding on. Haydet riding a great race through those sections, making up places.
We were talking about it with Strohmeyer, maybe, you know, being young and learning as he goes here. I think we could say the same thing as we see now. Vandenham riding the blue stairs. Good job, Mike Vandenham. Way to be, baby. Just riding that part. That's awesome to see, especially during the race. If you didn't see yesterday's last lap, also, that same move played a big role in how the finish went. So definitely go back and check it out. But getting back to my point, Ian, we've been talking about Strohmeyer maybe learning as he races here. You certainly have been, and I don't want to be rude at all. Could we say the same about Anton Ferdinand?
Anton Ferdinand's, yeah, one of those riders that perhaps hasn't had a huge number of wins to his name. He's got 2 career wins as an elite, 7th at the Under-23 Worlds back when it was in Ostenda, if you remember those beach world championships. So, yeah,
yes.
Not a prolific winner. Someone that has come to the UK a fair bit to race, but in fact hasn't picked up many wins. I've raced against him a few times at the Derby course here in our national series, but yeah, as you say, not a prolific winner, and perhaps still almost working it out. I'm sure we both went through it through our careers. We both started late in, well, trying to chalk up our national championship wins.
Yep.
And it took me a while just to work out how to win it on the day. And it's the same with these guys. Strohmeyer's going through that process. Ferdinand's going through that process. First of all, you need to get to the front of these races and kind of have the legs to be there. And then it takes you a little while further to kind of work out how to win a bike race. It sounds silly, but it does.
No, it's true. And I think, I was just going to say, like, I wasn't even, historically speaking, I know Ferdinand's got a handful of victories, but I was thinking even just to last weekend when we saw him in a position to win down at the Go Cross down in Virginia, didn't execute, was very upset with himself. Like, he really, and now dropped down there on his knees, just kind of running away. Like, I think he feels the pressure of wanting to take a victory here in the U.S. for himself, for his partners. He really wants to do it, but it seems like when he's under pressure like this and he puts it on himself, it was hard. Even in that last lap of Go Cross, he had an issue. He was really all over the place when he was going for this last lap duel with Loris Rouillet. He got sideways and kicked the bike off, and it kind of like bucked him. Bike threw the chain up into the spokes, wasn't able to get it back on, chain came off. So it was big problems for Ferdinand. And then yesterday, we hear about the bottle issue. Unfortunate. Probably I think he had a small crash or got caught up in one. Maybe had to go in for a bike change, realized he didn't have his bottle, tried to grab one. We're hypothesizing a little bit. But then today, now, we see him on the front, and he's literally like he's being hunted down and chased right now. He's doing everything that he can to stick this gap and to maintain it over it. And he's running with a bit of intensity right now, a bit of fear.
Absolutely. I think, kind of that little bit of panic setting in, a little bit of desperation to win the bike race, rather than kind of perhaps like a Vincent Bastans, who's a prolific winner. He knows how to win bike races, just relaxing a little bit more and, using those strengths to win the bike races. But right now, Lance Haydet, what a ride from the American, really forcing things through that double trouble feature, opening up a gap over the fellow chasers, and he's almost closed down that gap to Anton Ferdinand ahead. Strohmeyer now under pressure.
Yeah, for sure. We've seen victories from Haydet at Ruts and Guts in 2019. We've also seen him win the U.S. Open before. We've seen him win Reno Cross in the elites, as well as the West Sacramento Grand Prix. We've seen him take the Under-23 National Championships in Hartford under pretty snowy and nasty conditions. That was a big win against some pretty big hitters. We've also seen that was, again, in the Under-23s. He was the national champion. Then before that, he's definitely done some races in the juniors and this and that. At the World Championships last year in Fayetteville, ran 30th spot. and we've also seen him run in the podium at the Pan American Championships. But I believe he's got 2 national championships. We've seen him take the one in Hartford in 2017, like I was saying, in those snowy conditions as an under 23. And yeah, we've seen him continue to perform super strong in 2021, 20th at the World Cup in Waterloo. So Haidet, definitely a strong rider, a really good, definitely got a great head on his shoulders. Looks, got a great, position on the bike. Definitely got a great head for it. But right now, riding a really big career ride against some seriously deep field here in Rochester at this 4th round of the USCX.
For sure, opening up the gap over Loris Roulier and Vincent Bastagne-Strohmeyer, just kind of put a little bit more coal on the fire and managed to get back to that wheel ahead of him. It's really important on that next section of the course to be right on the wheel, because there are some fast open sections as they hit one of those now. And see, Strohmeyer knows how important it is to get into that draft, and kind of burns a small bit of his match to get back to the wheel of Bastagne, and they're heading through that pit once again. Haven't seen any riders in this leading group change bikes, change equipment at any point so far.
Yeah, not quite muddy enough to need a bike change, but if you were to have a problem, then you'd be like, hey, I'm going to grab a bike. It's like, it's weirdly right on the cusp. Like, it's not building up on the bike, so they're not getting heavier, but you might get it up in the chains. You might get some other problems, as we see now Haidet coming through. A lot of riders running, but you see, of course, the Swiss rider and the Belgian, as well as Strohmeyer, all hopping the plank. So everybody there feeling really good about how they go through the barricades with whatever style they are. Right now, Ferdinand trying to lock in. He's ridden pretty consistent lap times. Lap 1, 7:03. Lap 2, 7:08 against Strohmeyer, 7:02, 7:09. Haidet, though, 7:11, 7:02. So the fastest lap of the day that I've seen from anyone is both with Strohmeyer and Haidet, both riding 7:02. Can they do it for the remaining laps of the race? That's anyone's guess, but we've got about 30-ish minutes to go. Let's see how this all plays out here as this group now seems to be, as Loris Roulier makes it back and tries to drill this one back. Watch the difference in style as we see now Ferdinand there tucking in, taking that line through, and we see Roulier going low, cutting straight across and going back up to that high part of the grass, basically like taking a straight line and just bending it, whereas we see a lot more cutting and curving coming from the Belgian Anton Ferdinand up front.
Be interesting to see the lap time this time. It was a gap of around about 4 seconds last time through the finish. Looks like it's come down ever so slightly, so whether that's Ferdinand slowing down or the chasing group speeding up, we're going to get that from the lap time. See him taking that inside line into the steps once again. That's where he had his small slide out. Roulier carrying his speed around the outside, a lot less risk around the outside, but perhaps a little bit slower as we see Haidet moving up and past the Swiss rider once again on those steps.
Strohmeyer there coming around that last turn, Ian, with a bit of a slide out coming through there. You think paying for his earlier efforts maybe a little bit, just trying to tuck into this group, realizing, hey, it's going to come back and I need to go back to my original plan that I said yesterday of just taking and sitting in the group and waiting and gambling a little bit?
I think it's really difficult when you get such a good start and then you see the gaps opening up behind to kind of relax and let them come back to you. It looked like he was really going all in on the second lap, and it's really difficult in a field this strong, this deep, to be able to win a bike race with still 50 minutes of racing to go. You have to be almost head and shoulders above the field, and Strohmeyer, as strong as he isn't head and shoulders above everyone else. So yeah, having to settle back into that group, but looks like he's doing a good job now trying to get some recovery, and hopefully he'll come strong again come the final kind of couple of laps.
Definitely got a bike race on our hands here as we get a little bit of a replay of how it went down with Curtis White. So White comes into it with Scott Funston there coming through. So White just tucked off of this group just a little bit. So White down in 8th place, Scott Funston 7th, just behind with Michael Vandenham kind of in the middle of those two. So we've got that front group that of 5 that's pretty much together, although Ferdinand still with a little bit of a gap here, but Ferdinand with a gap, and then that group of 4 in between them, Michael Vandenham, Scott Funston, Curtis White, behind him Marcus Shelton, Tyler Clark just after that. So definitely got a good group here happening, forming in that top 10. Very strong, but little bit bigger gaps today as the conditions have deteriorated this track a little bit.
Bastagne's now coming to the fore, coming into that tricky down and back up where we've seen some riders slipping while on their feet. No problems for Ferdinand that lap. Bastagne's Lance Haydet, Loris Roulier choosing that option just to ride all the way around the outside, then cut across, and just saves a little bit of energy by remaining on the bike through there. Just means he doesn't have to clip back in before rounding this turn into double trouble. So hasn't had to remount the bike, hasn't had to try and get clipped back in before going down this stepped section like the other riders. But Ferdinand still solo, looking strong. A rider that used to ride for the Paushausen team, so one of the biggest teams in our sport. Had teammates as Elizabeth, Michael Van Turnhout would have learnt an awful lot in those early years of his career. He's moved on to the Hens Mass de Schack team just recently, the last couple of years, but now, unfortunately, Strohmeyer being distanced from those chasing trio.
Yeah. It's hard. It's hard to do back-to-back days like that. So let's see how Strohmeyer does. There's definitely not over for Strohmeyer, but now it's Belgian against Belgian as Vincent Bastans tries to hunt down Anton Ferdinand as they come through there. So this is definitely going to be a race to watch, as we see now. Ferdinand under pressure right now as yesterday's protagonist Vincent Bastans comes into this one trying to do everything that he can. Lance Haydet, though, matching the pace. Laurence Roulier not able to get on terms immediately with the pace that Bastans set. He tacked down the bike path there into that left-hander, up the run-up, and you can see the damage that the Belgians doing to the chase group now.
Super interesting to see how strong Bastans is. That small slight slip out for Ferdinand, that gap definitely coming down. He's going to be absorbed back into the chasing group, but I think this is a speeding up from Bastans rather than Ferdinand slowing down, because Roulier distanced, Strohmeyer distanced.
I agree. If you're Anton Ferdinand, what are you thinking? What are you doing here? Let's watch the difference in style too as they come into these sections.
Interesting. Ferdinand remaining with that outside flowing line. Bastans cut in tight but had the power to force it up that climb around that tree. Lance Haydet, what a ride he's doing, going with that huge attack from Bastans on this lap. Roulier falling back, as I said, Strohmeyer falling back. Right now you're Anton Ferdinand. Only he knows how hard he's been riding over the course of this lap. If he's been riding kind of 90-95% waiting for them to come back, then he's going to be happy with the situation, like all under control. But if he's been riding out full gas 100% and Bastans has been able to close him down over the course of this lap, then he's going to be starting to panic ever so slightly. But Bastans just opening up to Haydet as well, so we're just going to have two at the front of this race in a moment.
What about if you're Bastans? What is the mindset?
Well, you got to be super confident, having closed down what was kind of a 4 or 5 second gap at the start of this lap. You're going to be super confident. He obviously looks like he's got to grips with these conditions, got everything under control, and buoyed by his result yesterday. Didn't have the opening weekend that he wanted. He had a really hard crash in training. He's had to go and see the physiotherapist, the chiropractor, twice this week to get try and get sorted out, get his body working again. It looks like he has worked wonders.
Mentally, you're a rider like Vincent Bastans, 35 years, 35 years old, and comes into this one. You saw how emotional yesterday was for him. Yeah, I think it propels you. I think that momentum, he's in the momentum loop right now. Would you agree?
For sure, and he said in his interview afterwards that this would be his last year racing in the US. He didn't say his last year racing, but his last year for sure coming to the US, and yeah, it means an awful lot to him. I think he has family here, if I'm not too mistaken, so yeah, obviously means a lot to him to come here and race. He has come here like goodness how many years racing now, but it's really good to see, and it showed yesterday how much these races mean to him. A big C1 victory yesterday for him, as now he just looked like he was about to think about going round Ferdinand going into this next cambered section, but it's like Haydet coming back as well. Roulier not out of this, right, no one off out of these leading four.
No, I agree. I would even put Strohmeyer in there. You know, you can have a bad moment in a race and come back to it, and he's not out of the picture yet. It's going to take a bit to come back, but if he refines his legs, or if he just had a little bit of a sugar flat and he took a gel and he's going to come back to life here, it's impossible to say. But right now, this race, I would even consider, like you said, Roulier to still be in this one. The difference in the style in which these riders take these turns and this and that, I do think that Roulier is dealing with a different set of equipment, which is holding him back a little bit from some of these areas where these other riders are gaining time on the laps. You can just see the difference in the style of the way that he's riding. First lap was really good, but as it slicked up a little bit, he's had to change his tone a little bit. It's like, it's so hard to get any read on Loris Rouillet as he comes through, because he's just so complete and planted on his machine that when he comes through, you don't think, he's got a lot more to go, but he's definitely not able to push the tires as much as some of the other riders are in the turns.
For sure, it looked like coming into those steps, he was riding the same line as the previous 3, but it looked like his bike was just slightly more unsettled going through the turn, just front wheel kind of pushing away from him, the back wheel kind of sliding out ever so slightly compared to the leading 3, and it's just small, very small fractions of a percent that can be the difference in these races. But haven't seen anyone change bikes yet, as we see Ferdinand reaching round, taking out a gel. Loris Rouillet takes the opportunity as well to reach into the back pocket, get a gel as well. Talked about it yesterday, perhaps doing a carbohydrate rinse in the mouth, letting the body know that more sugars are on their way.
Yeah, I always found myself with a bit of cross gut if I were to take on a lot of fuel during the races. So I think maybe, like you said, like really light, electrolyte based or something like that, just to trick the body a little bit, like with a carbohydrate rinse. Or perhaps these guys' stomachs are able to, take on these newer fuels, these complex carbohydrates, and take it on and make it really simple or something like that. And then the formulas have changed a little bit. But either way, definitely coming in. And like I said, Strohmeyer maybe playing it really well. Ooh, Vincent Bastans and Loris Rouillet coming in for a bike exchange. Boom, boom, both riders taking the first changes of this season. So now a bit of a switch up at the front, and we see for the first time, man, Anton Ferdinand and Lance Hydet staring down the front. They played that coy. I don't think those other riders expected them to go into the pits, but they did.
That looked like almost a last-minute decision, even by Bastans himself. He was almost like he was almost past the entrance to the pit, and he turned in. Rouillet looked up, saw that he could perhaps take the opportunity to change bikes as well. What it does mean, these leading 2 are on obviously dirty bikes. The tread's full up of mud, the pedals are full up of mud, drive chain's going to have some mud in it, while these 2 riders, Rouillet and Bastans, on completely fresh bikes. So yeah, take that into account over the course of the last 20 minutes of racing. I've talked about kind of fractions of a percent here and there, and that could be the difference come the last lap, having a slightly lighter bike, a slightly cleaner tread perhaps. But Ferdinand knows that they're going to get away with almost a free bike change there. He sits up. Lance Haydet's just probably happy to be in this situation. He doesn't feel like he needs to really drive this one on. It's not Caleb Schwartz in there, it's Lance Hydet. So yeah, he's just sat in second position. And as I was saying, it's almost a free bike change for Rouillet and Bastans. Whether Ferdinand now kind of almost feels a bit awkward that he hasn't changed bikes, but now going into the last 20 minutes, if anyone changes bikes now, I'm sure others are going to use it to potentially launch an attack off the back of it.
I have to say, man, Bastans has got his cards close to his chest, and he's playing them well at the moment, if you would agree.
For sure, for sure. And this slight lull in the action just means that Strohmeyer, you said don't rule him out. He's almost closed down that 8-second deficit that he had going through the line that time.
All right, so the situation out here on the track, let me run you through if you're just joining us. We've got Vincent Bastans, Lance Hydet, Anton Ferdinand, Loris Rouillet, all in the front 4. Andrew Strohmeyer just off the back at about 4 seconds right now. Michael Vandenham, another, let's say 20 seconds behind there, the Canadian champ, Michael Vandenham, just behind. Then it's the U.S. champion, Curtis White, Scott Funston, the Colorado rider, out there in 8th spot, Marcus Shelton in 9th, and Caleb Schwartz rounding out that top 10. So right now, definitely got a lot of really good talent here at this USCX here in Rochester, up in the northwest part of New York State as they come through. This USCX series has definitely been putting down a lot, as we see Ferdinand there just clip out. We see Bastans come down the hill, Rouillet, and now, of course, Andrew Strohmeyer tucking on. If Strohmeyer gets a little bit of a shot of adrenaline and he's got his legs back and he sees the finish, only 20 minutes to go, gosh, only knows what could be possible for for the American rider, the young under-23 national champ, to be able to make something happen here in Rochester.
Exactly, you never know. Just kind of buoyed by that confidence of making it back to the front of this bike race, and yeah, none of us know exactly how each rider is feeling. One of these riders might be on the absolute limit, just remaining in the leading group, and someone else might be sat there thinking, oh, I'm good with this pace is fine, I can go faster than this, I can push things through this section, I can push things on that open wide power section. So yeah, each rider will have a card to play over the course of the remaining 2.25 laps, and it's just deciding when to play those cards.
Ian, if you're a racer and you're in this group right now, where do you think this race is going to happen? Where do you think that the viewers should be focused on? Where do you think the attack's going to go? Where would someone need to be considering? There's, I think, 1 or 2 spots, but I'd love your opinion first.
I think on that real kind of middle section of the lap where those technical features come at you one after another, if you're able to ride those clean, ride those quickly, and able to punch it between those sections, I think you could make a race-winning move on the final lap and keep it until the finish. However, with the slight changes in the course, it does mean that we're coming into the last quarter of a lap as we will see it. It's exactly the same as yesterday. Absolutely key to get into the steps first, or at least exit the steps first, to win this bunch kick or win this group sprint, because the finishing straight, you come down with so much speed that it's very, very difficult to come round anyone. And how times have changed. Andrew Strohmeyer back to the front of this one and forcing the pace.
Loris Rouillet, 2-3 bike lengths out, and now Anton Ferdinand finds himself on the back foot with another 2 to 3 bike lengths behind him, just getting this accordion effect as Strohmeyer gets the bit between his teeth again and just starts to punch it right up out of these turns as he comes through, now taking over the front again. The American rider doing everything that he can, a huge animator in yesterday's race as he comes down super wide on this turn, cutting across, taking that line. Everybody has to stuck onto his pace. Right behind him, Lance Heidet behind him, the Belgian rider Vincent Bostons, Loris Rouillet, and Anton Ferdinand all there at the front as they come through now. In just as a rebuttal, as a second point that I'd like to make there, Ian, it's my opinion that they're going to race. I believe that Bostons is going to try to be first into that left-hand run-up, and that technical section is going to be where things are forced, and there's going to be a lot of riders put on notice. I think that the Belgian rider knows that that run-up is an area where you need to be really, really good, and you need to hit it hard, you need to hit it fast, you need to ride that technical section, then you need to get to the to those other bits on the course, and as you said, through this section, continue to lead this out and to do everything that you can to be into this section first, because once you're in that bowl, which the front riders are just hitting now, and we're probably going to get an aerial shot, although we see Van tearing it up on the stairs again, good for him, as these riders come through that bowl. If you're here and you're not in the front, in my opinion, having raced this race many times, it's almost already over where these riders are now. This position that you take from where they are right here determines a lot. It's hard, if you're in third spot, to have enough kick on this pea stone gravel to get the traction to be able to make up space.
Correct. You're just carrying so much speed onto that final straight that you'd have to be so much stronger than the rider ahead of you. There's just not enough time to be able to come round someone when the speed's that high. So yeah, exactly that. You need to be leading off the top of the steps through that bowl section and down onto the finishing straight. But yeah, be interesting to see where this goes down. Where would you attack, Jeremy?
I think it was exactly what I would say. I do think that the that run-up is the place. You want to be in the front. You want to be in that technical section, and I'd be doing everything that I could. I'd be taking risk in that technical section there after the run-up, and then including on the half-pipe section that we've seen, I'd be doing everything I could to try to distance the riders, and I'd have my lines trying not to show them off too much before I got into that section to be able to use them to my advantage in strike when I decided that it was the right moment. But I do think in that last 15 minutes, someone's going to need to put a lap together, 7-8 minutes, and really put everybody under pressure and see what's left.
It's all about having that really kind of 5-10 second faster lap in the legs come the end of this race, and perhaps Strohmeyer just doesn't perhaps have the confidence to leave it until a last lap dash, but I'm sure he has got the legs, he has got the speed to do that really fast lap come the end. But whether he almost rides it out of his own legs by doing these laps before the end, riding a really good hard pace. I know he said in his interview after last weekend he seems to do well when the pace is on all the time, but sometimes you just have to mix things up. And yeah, he's up against some wily old characters in the form of Vincent Bastains.
Bastons now comes to the front, and this looks like it's more than just taking over of things. He sees that Loris Rouillet is a little bit out. He also sees that Ferdinand's having a moment of bad, what seems to be bad, and now this is where we've seen Vincent Bastons. We are in that last 15 minutes, and he's trying to go up to the front, and Rouillet giving over to the Belgian Anton Ferdinand to take over the chase there through that section. So perhaps guys are on their last legs as now Bastons rips the bike to his side. This could be the move for the Belgian as we see a lot of intensity in his legs. Strohmeyer getting on high debt now, putting his head down. You see everything coming in. Loris Rouillet saying this one's not for me right now as he comes through. He's got to let this attack go. Vincent Bastons doing everything he can right here. Ian, this is an attack from the Belgian if I have ever seen one.
This is exactly what we were talking about. You have to nail these technical sections and really apply the pressure in between them, which is exactly what he's doing. Came up that run up, really fast feet, pushing all the way to the top, and you see the intensity comes off that feature, pushes on. He's just desperately trying to get as fast as possible to that next technical feature where he's going to try and nail it through this half pipe section, hit his lines, carry the speed and exit really fast as he's got everyone under pressure, grappling to stay with the Belgian rider.
Yeah, this is like deja vu for me. I've called this race last 2 years, and I've watched literally in the opposite direction Vincent Bastons ride away with this early, but this time it's not early, it's late, and he is a finisher. He said it multiple times in many interviews. I like to finish the race off. I like to play close to my hands, and here he goes now riding that section super flawlessly. This is an attack from the Belgian, exactly where we thought it might happen within the last 15 minutes of the race. Vincent Bastons, and you could say, we don't know what to say, but after yesterday with all of the momentum, he's been able to put together a race today that really played into his hands. He cagely went into the pit, took a fresh bike, then they did their slowest lap of these more competitive laps. That last lap was slower than any other lap that they had done. 7:22 against 7:03, 7:05, 7:03, 7:08, 7:22, so they did about 15 seconds slower that last lap, which was perfect for the 35-year-old Belgian to be able to launch an attack there on that run-up. And now Andrew Strohmeyer's left with Lance Hydet just behind him to try to be able to reel in what's left of Vincent Bastons.
Bastons just got to stay smooth now through this section. It's a bit of a wide open section coming up where these riders can get an advantage from being in a small group, can draft ever so slightly, but Bastons good kind of 2, 3, 4, 5 seconds perhaps by the time we get up to here and through the pits once again. Rouillet distanced from that chasing group now.
Perhaps also you think about the jet lag, and all of the travel that these riders have done. They were down, coming from Europe, down to Roanoke to the Virginia's Blue Cross, which was the first stop of the USCX series. Then they had to make their way all the way up, and for most of them, probably a flight up here to the most northern part of New York. And now they're here racing 2 days, slimy, nasty conditions here in the U.S. for these riders. And now they're out there doing everything they can. So perhaps a little bit of fatigue has setting in, but definitely the second day. Vincent Bastons now with a sizable gap. It's Anton Ferdinand, the other Belgian rider, finds himself now having to do everything that he can to try to claw back his countrymen.
Get a replay now of Anton Ferdinand coming from third wheel within that group all the way through to lead just before we're coming up to the barriers. See Bastons already around and hopping through those. You see now Ferdinand, a big attack. He knows that if he doesn't go now, this race is slipping through his fingers.
Yeah, 100%. This is the moment. This is one of those moments in the racing where I have to put everything into this, and I have to be willing to lose. And that's what Bastons has done earlier in this lap, and now this is what Ferdinand's doing. Ferdinand would have preferred this move be off the front of the race. Unfortunately, it's going to be as a, he's going to have to burn matches to try to bring Vincent Bastons back. Bastons, though, in the middle of what I would call already about 5 minutes of serious pace driving as he comes into these blue steps. He's only got one to go when he comes through, so he's got about 9 minutes of racing to go here. When you're a crosser, you can do 9 minutes.
You can, but everything's going to be hurting at this point. But that's a good gap. He's going to look back and be pleased with his work over the course of this lap. It's really opened up nicely for him. Ferdinand's come to the front of this chasing group to desperately try and chase things down, but hasn't had a huge impact on that gap or get rid of any riders really. Really just still dangling at 1-2 seconds perhaps off the back of that one.
as we see now Boston's come into this bowl here before the finish. He knows this super well. He's definitely come into this section solo before. In fact, we're looking at, for Vincent Boston's, this would be his 6th in a row victory on this course here in Rochester. So you could call Vincent Boston's pretty much his middle name, Rochester CX. Having raced here against this man before, he definitely likes the vibe. You can see all the fans are out there despite all the rain and nasty conditions and late Sunday night. He's got to do everything that he can. Strohmeyer says absolutely not to Vincent, to Anton Ferdinand. Ian.
We were talking about the rider in that leading group who was obviously happy with the pace, and they thought they could go faster, they could take 10-15 seconds out of that lap time. I can confirm that rider was Vincent Bastans, a 6:51. So the previous fastest lap was a 7:02, set on kind of the second full lap by Lance Haydet and Andrew Strohmeyer. He's just absolutely obliterated that. Anton Ferdinand just did a 7:02 along with Haydet a 7:03, Strohmeyer 7:03, 6:51 from the Belgian. He just had kind of 10-15 seconds in the locker.
Yeah, and I have to be honest, with the way that they rode that lap before, it was just, that was the recovery that a rider like Boston's needed. And we know, I don't think he'll need to do as fast of a lap this time, because he's in the driver's seat right now. He's been able to do everything perfectly. He's aced that section. He did the hard lap, 1 to go. So now he's got the gap established, and it's going to be really hard for these riders to bring this back. Technically, Boston's is in control of himself. He's riding within himself. He was able to do a scorcher of a last lap yesterday, put it all together as Loris Rouillet there rides that section again in that trademark style. The only rider that I've seen doing it today. Strohmeyer left to do the chase. Boston's now putting everything into this. He's got to get to the top of this hill. He's got to kind of scrap his way up to the side, just boom, 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 quickly back on his machine, ride this technical session. He's doing it. We're watching it happen right now.
He is. We're into that section where on the previous lap, this is where he just began to put everyone under a little bit of pressure. This wasn't the launch pad. He was just putting people under pressure, wanting them to be kind of high heart rate, a little bit desperate, hanging onto the wheel before we hit these technical sections that just come one after another on this part of the course. And he did exactly what we said someone was going to do, just ride each technical section absolutely flawlessly and then punch it super hard up to the next technical section. Really good point in the course now. He's looking across. He's going to be super happy with that gap, this whole small little loop over the chasers.
Yeah, Vincent Boston's coming back, doing everything right on this one, putting it all together. The race is definitely for second and third now. Boston's, despite any problems, has the gap to be able to take the victory here. 6 in a row for the Belgian now. We see behind him, though, it is going to be Lance Haydet, Anton Ferdinand, Loris Rouillet. Can he get back in there? Andrew Strohmeyer leading the group, doing everything that he can. Everyone needs to make it through this half pipe section as it is. This is one of the more technical spots. It doesn't get a lot of sun, so it stays very kind of nasty and slick under here with a lot of sharp turns, a lot of roots and little areas that can really slide out. We saw in the women's race, crashes in this area. Let's see how Boston's goes through. He flew up that thing just like the plane that's going over him with ease. He's flying with lots of power in his legs as he flies up that section. These riders doing everything that they can to come through. Now we see the big wide line there, Strohmeyer taking it. We see Anton Ferdinand coming up, Haydet chops Anton Ferdinand there. Rouillet just trying to get on terms with everybody as they come through now in this final 4 minutes of racing.
It's going to be a real battle now to see who can take out second place and the remaining podium spot out of these 4 riders. Don't rule out Rouillet at this point, but Bastans looks like he's got this one wrapped up today. This would be his 44th career win, so we're talking about a prolific race winner. He's had 6th at a World Cup last year in Val de Soleil, so absolutely pure class, this rider. Looks like he's going to take this one out. Not letting off the power though, sliding through that turn, getting up out the saddle, punching it up to the next section. He's coming up to the final pit for the last time. I'm sure his pit crew will tell him that this gap's only gone one way over the course of this last lap.
For all these riders, can they be happy, Ian, do you think, with fighting for the other spots in the podium? Did they lose to a better rider today? Did a better rider just eat them, or was there tactically something else that Ferdinand, Strohmeyer, Heidet, Rouillet could have done differently?
I think looking at the lap time, no. Sometimes you just have to hold your hands up and say the better rider won on the day. No one else has got close to that 6:51 lap time. So, yeah, I think they've all ridden great races at this point. Strohmeyer took it out early, pushed it really hard, sat back a little bit, looked like he suffered for that fast start, but he's come back through really strong. And we're going to have a huge battle on our hands now. After yesterday, they all know how important it is to get through these barriers and up to that stepped section, lead off the back of those steps. We see 3 riders hopping. I think it's Lance Heidet choosing to run that time. I'm sure Strohmeyer is going to punch it all the way up this long drag as he did yesterday, try and really line things out. Yeah. That's Strohmeyer, Ferdinand, Heidet, Rouillet still just hanging on to the back of this group.
It'll be interesting to see if anyone tries to come over the top of Andrew Strohmeyer. As Ian said, it's a race to the stairs, the blue stairs. There's 4 stairs on each side, and now, oh my goodness, it is in fact Heidet that comes over the top, and Rouillet now knows also, I'm trying to come around. So big switches. We're going to see a big race as we go through here for second spot. Ian, as we go through now, it's big effort here as we go now. Rouillet is coming over the top of Strohmeyer. So right now, Ferdinand on the front, the Belgian coming through, realizing that he needs to get to those blue stairs first. It's Strohmeyer and Heidet just off the back, off the podium right now. Can they do anything to be able to claw this one back, to be able to get to the stairs before those guys, because they know how fast this finishes? Ian, what's your thoughts?
Let's look at the different in lines. Rouillet just trying to carry a little bit more speed, try and exit, but it looks like Ferdinand's going to get that pole position. But look at the time gap coming down to Bastien. Look how fast these riders are going on the last quarter of a lap.
Right now, it's all about Vincent Bastien. As you can see the gap there in the top part of your screen. But right now, it is Anton Ferdinand, Loris Rouillet back on his machine. Right behind him, Strohmeyer down in 5th spot with Lance Heidet in 4th. Here we go. It is the Belgian making it 6 for 6 as he comes through the bowl. He's going to be able to put his arms in the air. It's Vincent Rochester Bastien that comes in here to finish this one off onto the Pistone gravel, taking a look back. Hands are going to be in the air. He can't believe it. We can't believe it. After a big injury down in Virginia on a training ride, after yesterday's emphatic win, he makes it 2 for 2 here in Rochester for the Belgian.
Ferdinand bringing it in for 2nd, Loris Rouillet and Lance Heidet coming in for 4th position ahead of Andrew Strohmeyer. What a ride from the Legion rider there coming in. Brilliant. All did great rides today, all kind of gave it a chance, all rolled the dice at a different point, but you have to say the best man won on the day.
For sure. I mean, with the lap that he put in there on 2 to go, it was exactly as we thought, but yeah, 6:51, like you said, Ian, there was no one that was going to do anything about that. Sometimes you just put your hands up, like, hey, he just did 10 seconds faster, and it was just out of brute force. He just shredded it and absolutely went all in as he goes down. Gives a big hug to his equipment team helping him out there on site. As you noted, a lot of family and friends here in the U.S. for Vincent Bastien. Here we go, Michael Vandenham. Lots of fans out there for Mike as he comes through. This is your U.S. champion, Curtis White, finishing things out today. Strong ride from Curtis White. We didn't get to talk about the Curtis White signature beer that's out there, Ian, but there is a signature beer that's being poured for Curtis White out there, so that's kind of cool. It's something that you don't see every day. Funston, I believe, coming in next. So Scott Funston with a great first weekend debut for the for him. So awesome to see everybody come through as we get a little bit now here of Anton Ferdinand.
Yeah, he's going to be super pleased after yesterday's disappointing mishap with an illegal feed, coming in for 2nd place and all important UCI points before coming back to Europe. See Caleb Schwartz coming in, rounding out kind of the top 10 perhaps. Seeing all these riders finish off what has been a super tough weekend of racing here at Rochester.
Yeah, after Schwartz, it was Jules Van Kempen, Dylan, I was saying Dylan Z to be able to finish this one off. That's not Heidet. That's in fact the Swiss rider Loris Rouillet coming in, just trying to get cleaned up. Tough day out, you know, lots of just little, spit off the tires, mud all up in the chains. Great cyclocross weather though.
It was. Looking back at the race, kind of that moment where Vincent Bastins changed bikes and then just a lap later went all in with that race-winning move. And interesting that him and Loris Rouillet were the only two riders in that leading group to almost have the confidence to change bikes and get those fresh treads, fresh pedals, fresh drive chain, and really kick on at the back end of this race. But the young Americans, Heidet, Strohmeyer, still learning, still kind of processing all this information. I'm sure they're going to watch these races back and learn from them. There's still, especially Andrew Strohmeyer, got so many years to improve. He's got the legs. It's just, as we were saying in commentary, working out how to win these bike races. But super tough up against experienced riders like Vincent Bastins.
Looks like we've got Bill down there on this aerial shot with Vincent Bastins getting ready to do an interview with him, Ian. I'll be definitely curious to hear after yesterday what Vincent Bastins is saying about today's race. And
we're at the finish line here, Rochester Cyclocross, with our day 2 winner, same as day 1. Vincent, yesterday you were really emotional up here. You weren't sure if you were going to win a race again after being injured, but then you come back and you really took control of this race about halfway through.
Yeah, I think yesterday I gained a lot of confidence that I was able to still win the race, because the level of the young guys is really high. They are pushing from in the beginning also. It seems like the races in Europe. So I think I just got the confidence from yesterday, and I'm lucky with the rain, because then it's behind the turns it's not so explosive and a little bit more technical, and that suits me better. So I think the rain was in my favor today.
Was it, were people just looking at each other in that group? Is that sort of gave you the opportunity to make your move?
Yes, I think like this is like like the 4 races are the same people always. So I think we are on the same level, and I think it's just my experience that always takes the last hand, I think. So, but I'm very, very happy that I can still play it like that.
Well, you got a week to rest. I know you're coming off of a training crash, so we'll see you down in Baltimore, maybe even faster than we saw you here.
Yeah, I hope.
All right, congratulations. Okay, we're going to bring in our second place finisher on the day. Anton Ferdinand's making his way over. Anton, some difficulties in yesterday's race, just with the rules and everything else. Came back and looked like you wanted to just take control from the start today and go all out.
Yes, it was slippery race. In the beginning, I was struggling with the technical parts, but then I found the good lines and can take a little gap. But Vincent was riding strong today, and second place. I'm happy. Yesterday it was my own fault, and I need to forget that.
Yeah, for sure. But, you know, you're one of the guys that come in here. You said that winning one of these races is really the goal, which I think is everybody's goal. You've now been racing with the same people week after week in the U.S., so you're getting to know each other pretty well. Has it changed your strategy of how you approach these 4 and 5 riders?
Yes. Last week I was feeling really strong, but in the recon today I crashed really hard on my knee. And I don't feel myself really strong today, but yeah.
So the one thing we have to ask about is the shoe.
Yeah, my shoe is also was also broken. Yeah.
So when did that happen, and how did that affect you racing up at the end?
I need to be easy on the barriers and on the stairs, because otherwise my shoe takes off my feet. But yeah, second place was I can live with that.
All right, well, we'll see you next week in Baltimore.
Good, see you there.
Okay, we'll see you. Finally, we're going to bring in our third place finisher, Loris.
Good to see you.
Good to see you too. We're getting to know each other up here. So tell me about that. Again, same groups. It's almost like the politics of that group. It seems like you guys are looking at each other a lot, trying to figure out who's going to do the work. What's going on? What's the 4 and 5 people up there?
Yeah, today was hard for me. Yeah, in the first lap, I have one fault where it's muddy, and yeah, I want to back, but Anton is very good and go very fast, and I have a lot of work for I am back. And yeah, in the last 2 laps, I have not a lot of energy. I feel yeah, tired, and yeah. When Vincent is going faster one moment, I cannot follow, and yeah. But I am happy no more with the podium today. For close the third place, it's good for me.
Great, so we'll see you next week in Baltimore?
Yeah, see you next week.
All right, great. All right, that'll do it for us here on the ground in Rochester, New York, second round of the USCX Cyclocross Series. We're going to send it back to our commentators.
Thank you very much, Bill. Ian, lots in there, lots and lots. We got these highlights here, but let's talk a little bit about what we heard there from Bastans. He was saying that the course, Ian, being with it's slower out of the turns, it really benefited him, and we saw that, you know, the less explosivity, but we also noted that that slower lap just before he attacked really helped him.
Yeah, you tend to find as you get a little bit older that explosivity isn't quite the same as perhaps a rider 10, 15 years younger. But yeah, those technical skills, slightly slower race. I wonder whether that was when Anton Ferdinand broke that clip device on the shoe, meaning that it wasn't quite as tight on his foot anymore. That was a key moment of the race. Bike changes for Bastans and Roulier, getting those fresh treads, fresh drive chains, fresh pedals going into the final quarter of the race. Ferdinand desperately tried to close down Bastans over the course of that last lap and a half, but could make no inroads in the end.
Whew. And we've got more racing coming to you. It was this man today, all about Vincent Bastans, but more racing coming up next weekend in Charm City at the Baltimore Cyclocross. Charm City CX, definitely check that out. But this is your lead right now. Loris Roulier leading the USCX Series. Vincent Bastans with 154 points. Curtis White with 112 in third place. Strohmeyer with 104. Vandenham 97. Jules Van Kempen 91.